The Vikings did what? Yes, 33-0. No deficit is too big for this team, apparently. But we're breaking it down coming up next on Superior Sports Talk.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now it's Superior Sports Talk with KARE 11 sports anchor Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman. It's 30 minutes every day, and it's all the Minnesota sports you need. It's Superior Sports Talk, and it starts now.
Welcome in to a Superior Sports Talk Monday after one of the craziest Vikings games ever. 39-36 over the Colts. We're talking about it wire to wire today. I'm Sam Ekstrom in for Luke Inman, the host of Superior Sports Talk, and I'm joined by KARE 11's Reggie Wilson. I wonder what we're going to talk about today. Reggie, you alluded to it. We're going to talk Vikings-Colts. 33-0. The Vikings erase the deficit. They come back. We'll talk about the most memorable moments from that bizarre football game. We'll talk about what it means for the Vikings on the whole this season, and we'll jump into a little more local sports with the Gimme One segment. It was a good weekend for the Wolves and the Wild as well. Before we talk Vikings-Colts, remember to find the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku or Amazon Fire, a great way to experience our network. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube if you're listening to us on audio. And hey, if you're watching us right now, you can get us on audio, free and available, wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Reggie, there are so many moments from this football game to discuss. Little moments that happened, early on in the comeback, and then massive highlights that happened late in the comeback to get that game to overtime. I'm curious, some that stand out to you, if you are willing to do some ranking, maybe give me a top three, or let's just talk about the moments. I mean, you could go in any number of directions here. What's your first take on this football game?
Man, it's like, where do you start, They just look dead to the water, man. 33-0 at halftime. You're like, what is this? You think I said last night on Vikings Extra, you just think that they coast, to a disappointing loss against the Colts. Good bounce back win for the Colts after getting their doors blown off, on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. They come out, play inspired football, and really put it on the Vikings. Wait, that didn't happen? It didn't finish that way? No. I was telling people, I wouldn't blame you if you would have just turned the TV off or found something else to do. The game happened on a Saturday. So there are there's a large assortment of things that you could be doing on a Saturday other than watching a team get their doors blown off. But that's why there's 60 minutes in a football game, I suppose. And it's so funny because there are times they came out in the second half, they punt to start, and you're like, all right, just inspiring football here. And then as the comeback is going, Kirk Cousins throws an interception in the fourth quarter. You're like, dang, well, it was a fun thought while it lasted. And then it was just like, wait a minute, they keep getting the ball back. The Colts going 3 and out. And you're like, okay. And so look, it was hard to dwindle down 3 different moments, but here's my 3. Are you ready, Sam? You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
KJ Osborne's 63-yard catch. That just seemed to spark something. It led to the Vikings' first touchdown, and it was like, all right. Who, after the game, Adam Thielen was just because he was asked hey, what sparked this thing? What was the thinking when you all were down to get back into this game? He's like, we got to get a touchdown. We need a touchdown. And that first one kind of let them feel some things. You're like, okay, all right, okay. And I quickly forgot. Apparently Justin Jefferson said hey, we were up 28 on the Steelers last year and they came back and tied it. So why can't we?
Correct.
And so if they had that type of mentality, apparently Patrick Peterson had a lot to say in the halftime locker room speech about how all you need is 5 touchdowns. We're going to get you the ball back. All you need is 5 touchdowns. It's like, oh, okay,
Unreal.
yeah. All you need is 5 touchdowns. Yeah, great. It's going to
Unreal.
happen. Sure. Whatever. And so that first KJ Osborne catch leading to his monster day really kind of set the tone. All right. The second one for me is the 4th and 1 stop. I'm watching. I'm just like, okay, yeah, well, game over now. Matt Ryan sneaks it because, like, it looks like he's past the first down marker, you know? And what's funny is this whole concept of forward progress on Saturday, Sam, like, I don't know if we can really go there. I don't think we have the bandwidth or the showtime to really go there. You know, all the Shandon Sullivan plays that weren't. But at the same time, what's crazy is, like, the refs were so inconsistent, or maybe they were consistent on the fact that they're like, look, when forward progress is done, it's done. And so they stopped Matt Ryan short of the first down marker on 4th and 1, which gives the ball back to the Vikings, which led to my third biggest play. And obviously it had to be the Dalvin Cook touchdown. I saw your tweet, the screen game. Usually when they throw those screens, you're screaming at the TV. You're screaming at the, you know, if you're in the stadium, you're screaming at the field. You're just like, why do you keep insisting on running these screens? They ran the screenplay, and Sam, it worked. It worked all the way to the end zone. Dalvin Cook got that ball, and it looked like he had jet propellers on him. Like, he took that ball and just, I would love to see what the next gen stats are of where he topped out at his highest speed on that play.
Ooh,
and just the will of him to, you know, the blocking. Ezra Cleveland was amazing on the blocking on that. He kept up as fast as Dalvin was running. Cleveland was like, I'm with you. And he catches up and he's blocking down the field. And then Dalvin, just the grit and the want to from him to get into the end zone. He got in there, and, you know, it led to the Cousins to Hawk 2-point conversion, and now we're tied. And funny enough, people may not even remember, but the game in regulation ends on 2 straight punts. Like, this game was nuts, man, going into overtime. And you're just like, okay. And it was interesting because you're like, all right, well, they run out of gas. It's okay. When they get the ball first and they can't score and they have to punt, you're like, all right, well, here's Indy's chance. The Indy gives them the ball back. And that last drive leading to that field goal was a masterful drive from Cousins, from all involved. Thielen, Jefferson. The coach tried to pin Jefferson down like he was in a WWE wrestling match there, and they got the penalty drawn, and just sets up Greg for that game-winning field goal. And I think I'm still in disbelief of what happened in that game. It was incredible.
Yeah, there's so many directions to go. Let's set the table with this. These are the largest comebacks in NFL history. We've got the graphic for it. Vikings down 33 at half. They come back. They break a 30-year-old record set by Frank Reich and the Bills. And how serendipitous that Frank Reich's old team, a little karmic convergence here, as his team, the team that fired him, blows the lead on Saturday, and he was the one that orchestrated the previous record, 32, in the playoffs.
Wow.
So here are my 3. And this first one is not necessarily a play. I just think it's a fascinating stat that hasn't really been tweeted about or talked about much. The Vikings orchestrated this comeback, and they did not have to convert a 4th down the entire time.
Wow.
Like, think about the desperation that a team has in that situation. You'd be going for it in almost any situation. The Vikings did not have to convert a 4th down. Now, they tried one. It was the 4th and 15 when they were down 8 late in the game, and Kirk probably shouldn't be trying to scramble in that situation. I mean, only bad things are going to happen. You're going to get destroyed if you are 5 yards from the first down line and there's a safety barreling down the middle. It's probably a good thing he didn't even get there. So that didn't go well.
He thought he was Justin Fields out there and got caught like a yard in front of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, your eyes got a little too wide there, Kirk. And he tried to do actually the same thing at the end of regulation on a 3rd and 1, and that didn't go well either. So, but they didn't have to convert a 4th down in the entire comeback. They were just so efficient on offense. I think they only had maybe about 6 3rd downs in the entire second half. I mean, they were so efficient on 1st and 2nd down. It was 15, 20 yards, and it had to be that way. You couldn't have long drives. I think Luke Inman tweeted out that the average drive length in the second half was like 2.5 minutes for the Vikings. Also remarkable that they failed 3 times before they tied it. Like you figured going into the half, okay, they're going to have to score a touchdown every single time. 3 failures, and they still found a way to have enough possessions because their defense kept getting 3 and outs. Two other plays that stood out to me. Number one, the 2-point conversion. Because think about all that rode on that. I mean, if you don't get it, then it comes down to an onside kick. And if you don't get that, the game is over. So that's a 5% chance. Kirk Cousins had to work through all of his progressions on that play.
Wow.
He had a bunch to the left side. And obviously you're looking for Jefferson first. Colts were going to take that away. I think he had a single on the other side. They took that away. So Kirk looks to the corners. There's nobody there. If you watch the replay, TJ Hawkinson is tied up with that linebacker. He's jammed about 2 seconds into that play. And if you freeze frame it, he's not turned around. He's not even an option. And Kirk hangs in there, waits for that to break open, and hits Hawkinson for the 2-point conversion to tie it. Unbelievable. And I was intrigued to see how KOC would handle the 2-point conversion, because a lot of the new age coaches, they'll go for 2 when they're down 9 because they try to knock it out of the way early so that they have all the information. KOC didn't do that. He selected to wait until the very end to try it, which most fans would agree with. And then some of the 10% of fans that really follow the analytics would say, no, that's a bad play, actually. But they converted, and the fans loved it, and they got the momentum in their court. And then how about this one, Reggie? Overtime. 2 minutes left. If the Vikings kneel down and take a tie, they win the division. And that might have been an okay outcome. But they decided to risk the turnover, to risk, the potential of a mistake happening, and they actually made a move on that drive. And let's look at the play-by-play. They were at their own 24. 1:11 to go in overtime. Clock is winding down. Kirk Cousins, short left pass to KJ Osborne for 15 yards. And if you remember this play, KJ caught it and then barreled through a couple of Colts. And he probably got about 10 yards of yak on that play. And I think that is what sparked the Vikings to actually go for the win, is that they were able to convert that initial first down. KJ Osborne got so many tough yards on Saturday, 15 yards to get him out to the 39. One play later, Adam Thielen for 21, and they are basically in field goal range. Thielen was not used much, but he had some clutch catches in that game. Those are my 3 kind of underrated plays. I mean, if you're picking one play, Reggie, that just popped off the screen where the crowd was as electrified as you've ever heard, it's the screen to Dalvin Cook. It's definitely the screen to Dalvin Cook. I mean, the noise when he cut to the middle with that excellent vision, when he pulled away from the Colts, and then when he fought his way for the end zone, it was like a crescendo on a crescendo on a crescendo. What a moment. And it was pretty cool to be there. Let's keep talking about this. First, I'm going to tell people about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. #1 spot for news, trends, analysis, and we track the Vikings line there every week. The Vikings didn't cover on Saturday. That's the only thing they didn't do. They didn't cover the 3.5-point spread. Let's take a look at what their game is on Saturday against the Giants. Hey, it's 3.5 again. Vikings favored against the Giants, who won a controversial game last night. Money line -190. Over under 47.5. That's Saturday, Christmas Eve at noon. Get that line and plenty more at betonline.net on your mobile device as well. It's Bet Online. It's where the game starts. So that's the game on Saturday, Reggie. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean on the whole for the Minnesota Vikings this season? They are still the 2 seed. They would have lost it had they lost that game. They would no longer be the 2 seed. They're still in 2 seed position. Does it change the way that you view the Vikings, or is this just sort of an extreme version of what they have been all year? Are these kind of erratic enigmas that can just come back from any deficit?
They're living right. I keep saying this. I say it every week. They're living right. And even Adam Thielen gave a little credence to that in the post game. He was just like, the big man upstairs just, has some earmarked blessings for us, because how else can you explain some of these games, dude? Like the Buffalo game, it seemed like was their Hail Mary. And then all of a sudden they get this game as well. And Justin Jefferson is like, I know we scared y'all in the first half. I know we did, but we were here. We had you covered. Like, it's like, come on, dude. Like, don't do that. Every game for the Vikings this year is a cardiac episode for each and every fan watching. And I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. And especially being that they have come out on the right side of so many of these. At some point, you're just like, okay, maybe that's just how this team is living this year. Maybe that's just how things are going to go this year, because how else can you explain? So like after a certain point, you got to say, oh man, they're a lucky team. You kind of have to stop saying that, because luck eventually runs out, and theirs hasn't run out yet. I've never seen luck last throughout like the fullness of a whole season. And if you kind of just break down what we saw on Saturday, things just doesn't make sense. Like, okay, Kirk threw 2 interceptions. All right, one was a pick six to just start the avalanche in the first half.
Yeah.
The second one seemed to be one that would kill momentum in a comeback in that fourth quarter. And funny enough, both were on Jalen Reagor, and there could be arguments made that both of those interceptions were Jalen's fault, which is kind of crazy, especially when you think about how many people are just ready and willing to rag on Kirk Cousins anytime he has any semblance of a mistake. But maybe it was Jalen Reagor's fault. Go back and look at the tape. Also, Kirk Cousins was sacked 7 times. 7 times he was sacked on Saturday.
Yeah.
Whenever you see something like that, that usually shows like, okay, this team got beat up. And then quiet is kept. Back-to-back 400-yard games from Kirk Cousins. One in a losing effort. One in an incredibly winning effort. And this is crazy. Yeah, look at this tweet from Luke. Like, are you serious? This is ridiculous. Don't give Kirk his Gatorade, apparently. When Kirk gets his Gatorade, it's time to fly. But I just think, like I said, the Vikings just seem to be living right. And I don't know why these things keep happening. And it keeps coming down. I posted the question on Facebook Saturday night. I was just like, simply, are the Vikings good? And everybody's just like, I don't know. I think you watched this team long enough this season. You're just like, are they? I don't know. Because you're like, man, this is the luckiest team ever. But then it's like, well, the record, if you look at the record, it would tend to agree with the statement that they are actually good this year. But so many people are saying, like, look, if you get this team in the playoffs and, this defense, which only allowed 1 touchdown, like crazy enough, as much as, the Colts did on Saturday, the defense only allowed 1 touchdown, which is nuts. But, you talk about the defense, you talk about the inconsistency of the offense, and you're like, that's just not sustainable in the postseason. But you're like, well, is it though? Because it's been sustainable up until this point. what necessarily is going to change. I mean, the level of competition is going to be better, obviously. And so you're like, yeah, they aren't going to be able to get away with this with some of the better teams, but will they though? The parity in this league this season is kind of top notch. And so you look at this Vikings team and what they've been able to do, and I don't see why they can't compete. The only thing that I think is troubling, because even if the defense is giving up, big yardage, like you do, I think, trust the offense to be able to keep up with whoever. But one of the biggest issues, I think, especially when you look at that first half, when it is not going well, it is just not going well for that offense. And I don't know why it seems like they just need to get like kicked in the teeth or something like that for them to respond and for KOC to start making some of his best play calls, because they had that thing rolling in the second half. And it was just like, well, where was this in the first half? Like, what changed from the Colts defense, or what changed in the offensive game plan that made things much more difficult in the first half as opposed to the second half? Because what's the difference here? And why does it seem like the team just has to face some high level of adversity in order for the offense to be like, oh, okay, let's get it going here? I don't know how to explain that.
It's ironic because it's the script that seems to work so well in the first drive of the game, but then it's when they throw away the script later in the game where it also seems to work. Like, KOC has no plan for down 33. He had no plan for how to come back at Buffalo. They just kind of went by instinct and gut, and that seems to be when Kirk Cousins, oddly, is thriving. And he's always been this paint by numbers quarterback who suddenly becomes this gunslinger late in games. I've seen now what the high end of this passing offense looks like, and it can hang with any team in this league. It's already proven that it can go back and forth with Buffalo and win. Even in the loss at Detroit, passing offense extremely high end. And then one of the greatest offensive halves of football of all time on Saturday. So clearly that's going to be the ticket, Reggie, to playoff success. I'm not sure that they can really – I don't think they have time to unwrite some of these narratives. Shy of winning the final 3 games by 30, I don't think they can shake it. I mean, I think that they will inevitably go into the playoffs with the same questions lingering, and they'll have to deal with that, and they have to know that this is who we are. We are going to stick around long enough to beat you in the fourth quarter. We're probably not going to play a clean game for 4 quarters because we just don't have the cohesion yet in the schemes. We don't have the talent on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, and we are putting all our eggs in the basket that when it comes down to it, we have the executors on offense to get the job done. And just the poise and all the intangibles, like that's what they have to bank on. And that's very uneven quicksand to stake your Super Bowl hopes on. And I still have reservations about it. But I plan to be entertained. Like, if they are going to win or lose in the playoffs, I can almost guarantee that it's going to be interesting. And it'll be more interesting if they have those games at home, because it seems like anything is possible in that building. And if they can get at least 2 home games and then punch their ticket to an NFC championship, or anything can happen, I think you would take that. You would take that.
Good luck.
So we'll see.
Good luck to their opponents in the playoffs, and also good luck to their opponents' fan bases as well, because then they get to see, all the arrhythmia and all of the cardiac episodes that the Vikings put their own fans through. So good luck. They'll be in arms in emergency room visits.
Could be Detroit coming in, could be Seattle, could be Washington, could even be New York if the Vikings beat them on Saturday and take them down a peg. Could be any number of teams at this point. That NFC playoff race is tightening up. Here come the Lions. Everyone else is falling around them. It's going to be fascinating to watch. 3 weeks left in this season. One more segment, Reggie, and we like to call it Gimme One. I'm going to give you a prompt. Tell me one. And we start with the reason, one reason why the Vikings will be able to fend off San Francisco for the 2 seed. And before you answer, I'll tell you the remaining schedules. The Vikings play New York, Green Bay, and Chicago to end the season. The 49ers end with Washington, Las Vegas, almost called them Oakland, and the Arizona Cardinals. So what do you think?
Yeah, you look at those last three, and the only one that really kind of scares you from the 49ers standpoint is maybe Washington, because they have a lot to play for, especially after that loss last night. And so that kind of scares you. You know, Vegas is playing better. I guess they have an outside shot, kind of, maybe, sort of. And then, you know, the Cardinals are done. Like, they're just coasting to the finish line at this point. Don't have their quarterback. I think I saw Colt McCoy got hurt yesterday as well. So God bless them. You know, they're probably about to clean house in Arizona. Call it the Hard Knocks curse. And so then you look at the Vikings remaining schedule with the Giants, with Green Bay and Chicago. You know, Green Bay is going to be a tough one just because the Vikings are always in tough games with the Packers. I guess, you know, week one aside, which week one still had some topsy-turviness to it, but, you know, the Packers are still kind of fighting for their lives a bit. And so that game is going to be meaningful. Chicago, good Lord, 7 straight losses, even though they're in each and every one of these games, because they have this dynamic quarterback who apparently is a running quarterback now. Like, he was not ever really known as being like a dual threat guy, you know. In college, the dude is throwing bombs to zone 6, all of his receivers at Ohio State. Like, he's known as being kind of like a pure passing quarterback with some mobility, you know. That's what we're looking at. But we're seeing him now taking off 40, 50, 60-yard runs, and he's run all the way to 1,000 yards in a season. Like, I don't think you would have put him in that like class of like guys that will be rushing for 1,000 yards. He's now only the 3rd player at the quarterback position to have done that. And so that kind of scares you, because you're like, at some point you think maybe they're going to break through. And we're still trying to figure out too, like, in that last game of the season, are they sitting players, or is it still meaningful enough, you know, trying to keep ahead of the 49ers for that 2 seed? Or possibly if Philly somehow stubs their toe, they still need to keep winning to try to at least maybe capture that 1 seed as well. You're like, okay, can we keep winning? Do we still need to make these games meaningful? And on the road at Soldier Field, those terrible field conditions and the weather as well, that's not going to be a very fun game. So, you know, I think if you look at the question though, I think they still are going to have a lot to play for, and they keep finding ways to win these games, as crazy as it sounds. So I think that's a reason why the Vikings will be able to fend off San Francisco for that 2 seed.
I'm just banking on Brock Purdy having one rookie moment. He hasn't really had it yet. He's got to stub his toe at some point. And if San Francisco loses even one game, then your chances are very good to hold on to the 2. Let's end with this. 1 minute. One observation from this the weekend in Minnesota sports outside of football, because the Wolves beat the Bulls last night. The Wild are on a tear. What caught your eye?
Dude, look at the Wild. 18 and 11. I don't know if anybody really saw this coming, especially with, you know, how the season started. Flower giving up so many goals. He's giving up like 76 goals a game. And you're like, oh man, this is going to be a long, long season. But then they, you know, kind of got back to like the mean a little bit. And then all of a sudden now they're streaking. You know, when they lost those 2 games earlier in the month, you're like, oh man, this team is just going to continue to just float around 500, I guess. But then like these last several games have been impressive. And our guy, Kirill Kaprizov, is on a tear, man. Like, he is incredible. I think you made the mention the last time you and I did the show together. He was just like, look, I'm just going to take every goal that Kevin Fiala was responsible for, and you know what? I'm just going to decide to score them. That's fine. I got this. Yeah. I'll do it. We don't need Kevin. He can go. And it's incredible to watch this dude in action. And also, like, they're spreading the love like a lot of other guys. You got guys like Merrill and Gaudreau and, all these other players that are scoring goals right now as well. And you're like, how long can this be sustainable? And can they make a run out of this and possibly get into the postseason with this group of talent? Because Billy G was kind of on record saying, like, look, we're not tanking. We're not playing to lose here. Like, we still want to field a competitive team. And you're like, Bill, come on, man, stop playing with us. Don't do that. Don't act like this is just some winning effort here. And then now they win these 5 straight, 18-11, and you're like, okay, maybe he was on to something. Oh, okay. And you just wonder how long it's sustainable. On the other side with the Wolves, 150 last night. 150. I think I read that that's the most that they've ever scored in franchise history. Like, that was incredible seeing, like, D'Lo be on, Ant be the man. Ant looked good yesterday. And you wonder, like, okay, can he be consistent with this 37-point performance? He's jumping out of the gym. Did you see that windmill that he did? That was incredible. The steal that he had at the end of the third and just launched it up, fading away to his right, 3-pointer splash at the buzzer. Like, that was incredible. And also, Sam, I don't know if you've noticed, Ant is thin. Like, Ant looks incredibly in shape. I know we didn't necessarily like Cat kind of coming at him about eating his Popeyes, and he came into the season bulked up, and he said it was because he wanted to be bulked up, but he came into the season weighing more than Cat. Right now he looks thin, man. He looks skinny and in shape, and that bounce is ridiculous right now. He's just coming through the lane and just yamming on dudes, and that's incredibly promising. Did not have Rudy, didn't have a problem. And I'm just wondering if they're starting to try to figure some things out. And honestly, they can figure some things out if Ant is going to be that dude consistently on a night-to-night basis.
They needed to win these games too, because coming up, starting on the 23rd, they have Celtics, Heat, Pelicans, Bucks, all on the road. That's going to be Murderers Row stretch of games. They got to win the games now. Mavericks coming up the next 2. Reggie, good show. Plenty of Vikings Colts talk, and we'll get into Giants talk throughout the week. Luke Inman will be back with you here on Superior Sports Talk. Check out Reggie on KARE11 and on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV. You can find me on the Ron Johnson Show and the Minnesota Football Party here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, for Director Matt DeBritz, I'm Sam Ekstrom saying so long on Superior Sports Talk.
Be blessed. Spread love this week.